Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and glad to have you with us. We broadcast on Mondays when we can. We're going to be doing it as often as we can. We started this several years ago during the pandemic, and we broadcast on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, as well as my own YouTube channel. You can check those things out. It will be archived on all those sites. We have a very big show today. We actually have two shows that we're talking about. Again, all of them are wrapped around the nexus, if you will, of Leslie Castay. And so I'm going to bring Leslie in. Leslie, you are going to be directing a show at JPAS, and then you're going to be starring in a show at JPAS. And it went back to back, right? It's not like you're starring in one and then you're going to be one a couple of months from now. It's like slam, right?
Yeah. When a woman of a certain age must grasp the opportunities when they arise, Alan.
So first off, the one thing that we're going to talk about to begin with, and we have a couple of guests who are going to be coming in as well, is Young Frankenstein. Now, of course, this is Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, and it's based, of course, on the very famous movie which starred left to right Marty Feldman, Cloris Leachman, Gene Wilder, and of course Terry Garr in various roles. That was Igor and Frau Blucher, and of course that was Frederick. I'm not quite sure which way. Frankenstein and Inga, of course, were the character names. And of course, we're lucky we're going to have the characters who are playing both Frederick and Inga in just a little bit. But first off, before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, as a director, how you kind of approach this, because this is not a small show. This is a big show. Lots of dancing, lots of singing, and lots of moving parts. So again, this is, as I recall, this is the second time that I believe it's being presented in the local area. I believe it's been presented once before at Rivertown.
Mm-hmm.
So
7 years ago, I think they
and Gary Rucker, I think, started. So tell me a little bit, if you will, how you were approached to do this, because you've directed before, but was this something that was on your list that you said, I'd like to do this? Did you go to Dennis Asaf or the other people, whoever were involved over at JPS, or did they come to you and say, we have a project we'd like you to do, and we want you to do a musical?
Sort of both ways. A lot of people have been tossing out the title of Young Frankenstein for a few seasons, and we have a stalwart. First of all, my cast is uniformly top notch, top to bottom. I knew we had the talent to fill those iconic roles, because there's a huge shoes to step in. But one of the biggest shoes to step in is that of the monster, who has to be of massive size and massive talent and massive sweet empathy. And we have a wonderful veteran of JPAS named Adriel Aviles. And when I saw him, I was working with him in Holiday Inn, and he's so wonderful in the ensemble and doing everything. You can just count on Adriel for being there, for filling in, for understudying everything. He's just been there for forever. And I remember Reagan Lincoln and I were sitting behind the table, but boy, would he be great in Young Frankenstein or not? So, and then Michael Paternostro was our musical director of Holiday Inn. We're like, boy, Michael Paternostro would be great as Frederick Frankenstein. Oh, wow, we've got we got two big cogs of the cast right here. And I know Dennis loves to do that Halloween slot show, and it's always sort of fun and racy and carefree. And, we did Addams Family in that spot a couple years ago. And it's that great October spot is great for these kind of shows. So it's a big show, so it fits on that stage beautifully. We've got some challenging special effects happening that we are going to make happen, and it's going to be quite a spectacle, and it's just I couldn't be happier.
So how much about the movie did you know going into it? Did you know anything about the movie at all?
I knew every line, Alan. I mean, it was my favorite movie. We would play it when I'd be on the road with a show. Like, I think I remember Cats, at least 3 times a night in the month of October, the cast would join at someone's hotel room, and we would just watch the movie over and over. And it was just one or two lines from the movie would just creep in backstage, and we would just bust up laughing. So it was a favorite movie of mine growing up. My parents took me to see it when I was a little girl, in its first release at the Lakeside 3 Cinema. Remember the old one on Veterans Highway where the Whole Foods is now?
Absolutely.
I remember seeing it there, and I don't think my parents realized like how sort of naughty it was, suggestive, so they just thought it was all going over my head. But I got most of the jokes. I loved it. I fell in love with it. I thought I was seeing an old black and white movie, and when the Mel Brooks comedy started happening, it was just so funny. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Everything from the what tremendous knockers to what hump, right? Every line you can imagine. So again, I obviously was a big fan of it, but I don't know if you knew the lore about that the actual 1931 Frankenstein, you got me going now. Frankenstein movie props, the set was actually used for Young Frankenstein as well. It was actually on the Universal lot, and they said, "What?" So they actually used the same one. So that's why it was so authentic looking. So again, you mentioned Michael Paternostro. I want to bring him in first because he is your Frederick or your Frederick, depending on which way we spell it or say it. Michael, welcome again. We know of you doing music, like we said earlier, but we also I know that you're talented in so many other ways. When Leslie said to herself, or was remarking with Abby Lincoln, what's the possibility of Michael doing it? Did they go right away, or did they kind of like lure you in and say, we have something to talk to you about? How did they present it to you?
It was probably a few conversations that Leslie and I had to start it off, and we just talked about it a few times on the phone, and then I talked to Dennis about it. And then it just kind of happened like that. It happened over 2-3 phone calls between the back and forth between a few of us. We were also talking about music direction and other things like that. So
she didn't have to drug you or anything like that, huh?
No, not at all.
Speaking of drugs, I'm bringing out my drink of choice for tonight is believe it or not, this is not a screwdriver, which you think it is, but it's like a screwdriver. It's a Harvey Wallbanger. So that's vodka, orange juice, and then you float Galliano, which is an Italian liqueur, and it's the Italian liqueur in the big tall bottle. If you ever go to a bar and you see this giant bottle, say, why do they make it that tall? It's so it'll stand out. That's Galliano, and you can drink it with your vodka and your orange juice, which would be a screwdriver, and it becomes a Harvey Wallbanger. Okay, Leslie, you go ahead. What did you bring in?
Hot toddy. I have a little secret hot toddy. I don't disclose the ingredients.
Well, we're going to talk about toddies and bodies and Tallulah Bankhead in a little bit too. We'll talk about that later because we are going to talk about Looped later, which we'll get to. But while we have our Frederick here, Michael, I don't think the cast will be complete unless we also brought in our Inga. So I like to bring in Charlie Carr, Inga. And I'm not going to talk about anything related to any kind of thing on a door right now. But but again, how did you get apprised of the role? How did it get offered to you?
So I'm actually relatively new to the New Orleans area. I moved here in December and was only going to be here for 3 months until March. And then my husband and I completely fell in love with New Orleans, as one does. And I originally went to college for musical theater, but then the pandemic happened. I hadn't done anything in a while. And I think I was just looking up local theaters in the area and seeing if any auditions were happening. JPAS happened to be on there, and I showed up to East Jefferson High, hadn't done a musical theater audition in about 6 years. Was absolutely terrified, and it ended up working out. I had to buy tap shoes for the callback and everything. But yeah.
and I should point out for those of us who didn't see it, you were in the Tennessee Williams Theater Company's production of Spring Storm, and I said I don't remember seeing this lady before, but she's quite compelling, and so I think it'll be a wonderful addition to this particular production as well.
Alan,
quite the change.
Charlie walked into the audition, and it was open call, everything, and we were worried. We didn't have anyone really slated, in our minds. We were just really honestly looking, for Inga, and she walked in. I was like, "Who is that?" I said, wow, can she dance? Can she yodel? Yes, she can do all these things. And she's a wonderful actress and great dancer. And Charlie's a joy. So I'm happy to be one of the first to discover Charlie to New Orleans theater scene.
And again, you follow in illustrious shoes because, of course, Sutton Foster was the original Inga on Broadway. And
I think my red hair helped probably.
Michael, was it Roger Bart who played Frederick?
Yes, Roger Bart.
So, and again, I think he's now on Broadway in Back to the Future. So, again, really, really very talented people taking on these roles, to take on the movie. But again, this is not just, the story of young Frankenstein as told in the movie. It's a singing, dancing musical. So it's more too than just the movie, although they do incorporate, I guess the biggest number would of course be, if I'm not mistaken, the Irving Berlin piece that they did. I'm not quite sure what part of these are the dancing, but the piece from Top Hat and Tails, right?
Putting on the Ritz.
Putting on the Ritz.
Yeah. Can't have a young Frankenstein without putting on the Ritz.
or as the monster said, now, Michael, tell me a little bit about what you're doing in that particular scene.
That is Together Again for the first time. That's Igor. That's got Sauber right next to me, and it's kind of the first time we meet at the train station, and we go into a big number about how we're together again as master and Igor, assistant.
So another great thing about having Michael in this role is, he's only has 9 Broadway credits. So, and so to have a great dancer, Michael, you're a great dancer. We first worked together on Broadway in Guys and Dolls, in the Broadway production, and he was
the one with
every night I would
Nathan Lane and Faith Prince.
Yes.
Yeah,
92. Okay,
that's where Michael and I met. I came in like 1993, 94, I think, and I would sit in the wings and we discovered we were both from New Orleans. We didn't know each other when we were in New Orleans, and I would just sit in the wings and watch him do that crapshooters dance every night and just be blown away. And then we would start talking music and piano and and this that. So when Michael finally ended up in New Orleans, he wanted to pursue musical direction and piano, but I also know he's this brilliant dancer and actor. So to have him in this role and to be able, and we have Jeanne Buisson-Hébert giving him full on dance. So this is going to be the danciest Frederick Frankenstein you've ever seen. Get ready. It's so much fun to watch. I'm just like, oh, we're just so lucky.
And Inga, Charlie, do you feel like maybe you have a little bit to prove for yourself since they've got so much Broadway creds as far as that goes?
I mean, sure, but also like everybody in the cast is so lovely. Leslie and Michael have been so incredibly welcoming. I consider myself extremely lucky to be working alongside them and learning new things every single day. But they have very specifically not made it feel like you have a lot to prove.
Not at all. And yeah, you're stepping up fine. Everybody in the show. I mean, I was saying to the cast last night, we finally are getting on stage and working with the massive pieces of scenery. It's probably the most talented, uniformly most talented cast I've ever worked with in New Orleans. They're just fabulous. Everyone's great.
So
from students on up.
Again, we had done Irving Berlin's Holiday Inn right prior, and that was a fairly big dancing spectacle as well. What were the challenges you found with this particular one as opposed to a straight out musical? Since this is more of a comedy musical in a sense, based on the film.
Yeah, it's a comedy. There are a few there are 2 or 3 very large production numbers that we've been working on since day one. First day we started attacking putting on the Ritz. But I think a big challenge of this piece is that it's written with, it's almost underscored throughout like a silent movie. And you just have to plan and plot out the timing. It's not just musical number and scene and musical number and scene. The music never stops and it enhances the eeriness of it. And there are these wonderful special effects. So we're trying to just integrate the music, the underscoring to make the scenes play better. It's almost, we were really an homage to those 1930s black and white horror movies.
Yeah, and you mentioned Silent Movie, which is another Mel Brooks piece as well.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Michael, tell me a little bit about what you found. Maybe again a bit of a challenge for you as an actor with the role of Frederick.
Yeah, he's nonstop. I start on stage in the first act and I don't leave. I get one break, one scene only. So it's just all back to back. It's all those iconic scenes from the movie that but the movie, if we talk about it, it's that black and white kind of old horror movie feel in the movie, and they do these jokey great bits. But the show is like a Hollywood musical. It's a Broadway musical. It's a waka waka waka. It's a totally different energy. So, going from what's in my head from the movie and into all of this music and all of this showbiz, that's the trick. It's riding those two lines. That's what I find. Because I want to be Gene, but I can't. Roger's doing some other crazy thing,
right?
So I kind of have to mix it. Yeah.
And there is a journey that the character of Frederick takes. First off, where he's being challenged in the medical school at the very beginning, and then kind of like where he takes ownership of, yes, I am a Frankenstein. And
that's the arc. Yeah, that's the arc. He's a bit of a man in denial of who he is.
I guess the same thing. Inga, Charlie, has to kind of like be a little bit of an adornment to the show, but there's so much more to her in this musical. Are you yet tired of seeing all that hay or the role with it? have you been playing with it yet?
Never. I mean, yes, we actually. I'm not sure if there are any production photos yet of it, but we have a really great hay. It's not a hay bale, but like a hay wagon that has the ability. It's on like hydraulics, so it bounces up and down, which is exhausting, but so much fun. I think really the difficulty, of course, too, with playing, these attractive sort of bimbo-esque characters is making sure that, like, yes, there is that like sweet bimbo-ness side to her, but like she is still incredibly intelligent and is this, intense lab assistant at the end of the day. So also towing that line of, more than just an ornament, also helping to, propel the storyline and whatnot. Also, I mean, having Terry Garr as being the original and Sutton Foster is just kind of like, okay, so I don't know how I'm going to make it my own, but I'm going to find a way.
Well, these are really smart ladies. So, Inga is no dumb broad. She is a smart cookie, and she's has a lust for life, and she's very sensual and all of these things, but she's also very smart, and she's got it going on. And I think the fact that the original Broadway production was directed and choreographed by Susan Stroman, a woman, so she made sure to really balance that male female dynamic. I think in the show too.
I think you're right. I think when Mel Brooks wrote it, and he wrote it with Thomas Meacham too, wasn't he the original
Thomas Meacham?
Yeah, Thomas Meacham. He was one of the original scriptwriters. So when they wrote this, for the musical to adapt it, so to speak, I think that they had to expand the role because she was a little bit more, I would say, superficial on the film than she is in the musical. There's a lot more substance to it. You can actually see the character. I would say expand a little bit from what it was on the film. Although Terry Garr does a great job and a great comedian. Speaking of great comedians, and you didn't mention yet the original role done by Madeline Kahn. Tell me a little bit about who's that and some of the other people in the cast that you just briefly mentioned. You mentioned the monster is being played. You mentioned by
Adriel Aviles. Jennifer DeLotte is playing Elizabeth, and she is just delicious. She is so funny. She gets the humor, and it's not exactly so. Megan Mullally did the role in the Broadway company, her performance was completely different from Madeline Kahn's performance. Just as funny, So Jen's sort of riding this line, of in between. So if you just go to the core of the character, who she is, and she's all about herself, and it just plays so wonderfully.
And the big number is "Please Don't Touch Me." Is that right?
She has two numbers. She has three numbers actually. Yeah. For a character who's in about 2 scenes, she's got 3 songs. So.
And I'm trying to think. You mentioned Igor. Yes. Scott Sauber. Now Scott has been. I don't think Scott ever stops. He does lighting, he does singing, dancing, directing. Again, he is a little bit taller than I would imagine because he is not. I remember when he did the Scarecrow. I said, "My goodness, he is lanky." So does he have to bend over to do the do the character?
I mean, he's permanently like this or this, depending on which side the hump is on.
What
Scott
hump?
is great.
What hump?
Scott and Michael's chemistry is just so wonderful from the get-go. You just buy it, it's just so fun to see. Y'all look like Hope and Crosby up there, in that number. It's just so great. I love it.
That's wonderful. Well, I know previously Mason Wood had done the character, and as you probably know, I do Stepping Out. He came on the show to promote the show, and he was completely in character. He never stopped being Igor on set, and he kind of freaked out Peggy Scott Laborde. She was like, "What's going on here?" But it's called the method, Peggy. It's called the method. So, in any event, I don't think Scott would probably do that, but I would imagine that he's a lot of fun. And again, I can't wait to see this. Now, please, let's go over a little bit of the dates and some of the logistics, et cetera. This is going to be at the JPAC, big show. And you open when?
We open Friday, October 27th. Is that the date? The 27th. And we skip
from today
the Saturday night because but there's going to be a Thursday night the next weekend. So we're only doing 5 performances. JPAS has done usually 6 performances in the past. We're only doing 5 because it's such a big theater and
right. I understand. But but again, you got 1,000 people that can pack in there. So if you you have a potential for 5,000 people to see the show.
And they should, because it's going to be spectacular. Steven Thurber is doing lights, and he's just basically moved into JPAC now, hanging this, hanging that, getting everything right. We're going to have all the moving lights and he's got some wizardry up his sleeve that I don't even know what it's going to be like yet, but he's been plugging it away. So we have we have a table, hopefully that will move up to the, where the monster is on, and it's just going to rise up to the fly.
So now, who did the set design?
Anne-Marie Foster. She's a young, talented set designer. She designed the Murder on the Orient Express.
Okay, that was nice.
Yeah, beautiful set. So she's got some great, terrific ideas. Very young. And this is, I think, her first big musical on the big JPAC stage. So,
and normally I don't get really excited about props, but I think props are probably very important to this.
Olivia Winter is doing some wonderful props. They're so funny and just perfectly in spirit of the show. We keep adding things. Oh, can we have a fake arm here? Oh, can we have strange requests? But they're coming.
So again, 5 shows only. We want to, let everybody know to promote this accurately. Young Frankenstein will be on the boards at JPAC. That's the Jefferson Performing Arts Center, and that's at 6400 Airline Drive. And again, for those of you who didn't see the film, you can now see the musical in all its glory. Leslie's directing it. And of course, in a little bit, we're going to talk about her starring in another role as far as it goes. And of course, Michael is Frederick, Charlie is Inga, and we've mentioned some of the other cast members. I guess the show runs about 2.5 hours or so? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, about 2.5 hours. And one other principal we forgot to mention is the wonderful Meredith Long Deeth as Frau Blucher.
Yes.
Wait till you see her song. He was my boyfriend.
He was my boyfriend. Yes.
Good.
What do you think in terms of somebody who's not maybe younger people who've not seen the film? I can't imagine that there are any, but what are the big takeaways you think that they'll get out of this if they've never been to either a musical of this sort or B, seen the film? Michael, you go first.
Yeah, what do you think, Michael?
I think they'll love it. I think it's a kooky ride. I think it's got enough Frankenstein in it, so they'll love it. They'll recognize the Frankenstein, but it's really got these jokes that just come out of nowhere. And then we do these musical numbers. So I think it's a ton of surprises. If you don't know this piece, I think you might enjoy it even more if you know it.
And I know actors prepare for roles. A lot of times they do backstories in their mind, etc. So, Charlie, tell me something about Inga that nobody else knows.
Oh, well, she grew up, in my little backstory. She grew up yodeling the werewolves away from her like family dairy farm, which is why then back when they're on the hay bale at some point in one of the songs, she is yodeling extensively in the lieu of a werewolf.
Roll those werewolves away.
And what were you drinking tonight? I didn't get a chance to check with you yet.
I actually already drank 3 shots of espresso. So
very good.
Different kind of intoxicated for sure.
Michael, what did you have in tonight?
I also had coffee chicory this morning, so
it is gone. And making your director very happy that you're not imbibing anything in the off hours, preserving your voice, keeping yourself sober, doing all the things that you're supposed to do. And again, I really do appreciate you all being with us today. This is a show that is a big show. JPAS, has a very good director, obviously, that they've hired to do the show, and some great acting and great singing, dancing is all available in this show. So we hope that a lot of people will take advantage of it. Only 5 shows, as we mentioned. What's going on that Saturday night that they're not performing? Do we know, or is it a big secret?
I'm not sure. No,
okay.
I don't think it's I'm not sure.
Yeah, might be. Sometimes they have touring shows that come by. Yeah. Might be a one night only type thing that they had to book. But in any event, this is great.
They don't usually. JPAS usually doesn't do a Thursday night, so I think the second weekend we're doing a Thursday night instead of the Friday. Instead of the second Friday.
A lot of times they do a final dress that they invite several people.
But this will be a real paid performance in the second weekend as a Thursday. I think so many people only doing a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of people have their weekends booked in advance. So it's a chance, if you have your weekends booked, you can come in and see the Thursday performance.
Okay. So. Well, again, I want to thank you for being here, Michael, Frederick, and thank you for being here, Charlie, Inga. We're going to let you get out of here and prepare for your roles a little bit more. And I look forward to seeing you on stage. I haven't figured out what night I'm coming, so I have to do that as soon as I can. But again, we will hopefully get more people to put their derrieres in the seats and watch this wonderful spectacle. We hope that JPAS does very well with it. And again, thank you, Michael and Charlie. We will see you, and I'm going to let you all leave while Leslie and I stick around for a little bit to talk a little bit more about what's going to be going on also with JPAS with another show dealing with a very larger-than-life character that we know of, Tallulah Bankhead. So thank you, Michael. Take care. And Charlie, you too as well. Thank you. All right. So now we've sort of gotten to the halfway point, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Looped. And first off, before we even talk about the character you're going to portray, this is a show that I know was done some years ago. But tell me a little bit. Do you know anything about the history of Looped, where it was performed, and who did it originally?
I think it was in development. I think it started at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. It's a play written by Matthew Lombardo, and it's a 3-character play based on folklore about Tallulah Bankhead's final film. It was a horrible B movie called Die, Darling.
Die, Darling, yeah.
Go into the recording studio after filming and redub one line of the film. And legend had it that it took 8 hours for her to record one single line. And this play sort of postulates on what happened, what was going on in the studio, really. So over the course of that recording session, she's trapped with the film editor. The editor of the film he draws the short straw to have to deal with Tallulah Bankhead, who by that point in her career was, way off the deep end with drugs and alcohol, and just didn't really she just delved into being a celebrity more than an actress. Well, she leaned back on her stories and her characterizations and everything.
She was a larger than life character who literally was probably bigger than her stage persona, as far as it goes in her film presence, that she actually was more involved. For those of you who don't know, this is a Time magazine picture of Tallulah Bankhead that was done. I'm not quite sure of the year, but she, anytime you merit to get on the cover of Time, and that's probably a little bit more of an iconic picture of Tallulah Bankhead. And again, another one of her from around the same era. She grew up in Alabama.
Born in
She was the
Huntsville.
son of a very, very well off family, and apparently her mother died at a rather tragically not long after she was born.
3 weeks after giving birth to Tallulah, she developed blood poisoning.
Yeah, and I guess we call that sepsis now, basically.
Yes.
Huh? Yeah.
Yes.
And so she passed away. So she was raised without a mother, always looking to kind of capture her father's attention. As I appreciated, she had an older sister who
Eugenia,
who was apparently very attractive, and Tallulah was not.
Right.
Was a little overweight and really did not look as pretty. And so in order to be able to kind of capture her father's attention and be the darling of her father's eye, etc., she would do things, whatever it was, to capture his attention. And a little bit later on, we're going to talk a little bit about some of her peculiarities, shall we say, as to what made her. But so we just talked about you being the director for Young Frankenstein. But you're not the director for this particular vehicle.
No. We have the great Janet Shea directing. So it was a double whammy. When I was not familiar with this play at all, it was done on Broadway several years, within the last 10 years, I think, starring Valerie Harper. Valerie Harper from Mary Tyler Moore Show fame.
Rhoda, right?
Played the role brilliantly. Yeah. You can actually see her performance on YouTube, actually, from the Broadway production. She was brilliant. And I just started researching. I'm like, oh, what's up the next season? Is there anything I want to maybe try on stage? And then of course SAG goes on strike, and I realized, there will be no filming for me for a while. So it might be time to get back on the stage. So when I saw the play, I reached out to Janet, see if she would consider me. And I'd worked with Janet before as an actor several times. She played my mother in Grey Gardens, and that's where we just forged this very close bond that will be with us for life. I consider Janet my stage mom forever.
And Little Edie, right? That was a role, and she was
Edie, and she was Big Edie. Yeah.
She was Big Edie. Speaking of Big Edie, hello, Janet.
Janet, darling.
Darling, hi.
So I thought I'd bring in your director, since you were director of the last one. I thought I'd bring in the director for this one in the second half a little bit to talk a little bit about it as well. So Janet, what's it like directing Leslie?
Well, it's a total pleasure. We had to, because of a lot of things, we had to go through the script and cut some things because it was lengthy. And I think she was a great help with me to tell me we really need to put these things in. We need to see these things, and these things can be taken out. However, we are leaving in all of the F-bombs and all of the other stories that
ready. I mean, my mother is going to wash my mouth out with soap when I come off stage.
Well, she was known for a lot of things. Janet, again, I don't think it's a secret. You're a little bit older than Leslie or I.
Just a wee bit.
So
I'm old enough to play her mother.
Do you remember the first time you actually became acquainted with Tallulah Bankhead? Do you remember when the first time you saw her either on screen, on TV, or whatever?
The first time I saw her was on TV, and I think she was a guest on some. I think it was Edward R. Murrow, and that's also on YouTube. I watched it again, on YouTube I saw her appearance on the Lucy show and all of that, and she was really behaving herself. I don't know what the rehearsals were like, but she was really behaving herself when she was on camera, and she came across as very charming and lovable, likable, just a likable character. This play that we're doing is based on a recording session where she has to loop one line, and
It
for
takes
some
8
reason she
hours.
can't get it right the first
Right.
few times.
Yeah, the first dozen times maybe.
Oh yeah, she
and again-
needs to drink. She needs a break. She needs. She's to smoke. She forgets the line. It's just all these sort of things. It's amazing. It's so funny.
There
Comedy.
was a line attributed to her about, she said, cocaine's not habit forming or addictive. I don't remember the exact thing, but she says, I've been doing it for years.
That's right.
And I remember there's one time
In
when
the script too.
she went to put eye drops in her eyes, and she took the wrong solution vial out, and she screamed, I put the cocaine in my eyes instead at one point. I don't know if you ever heard that story, but
That story. Do you know that story, Leslie?
No, I never heard that way.
well, there's another
We listened to her sing yesterday, which was really a hoot.
Oh, I can imagine. I
yeah.
can imagine.
Yeah.
My favorite story about Tallulah Bankhead, though, was apparently, and I don't know if it's fictional. I assume it is, but it just sounds so much like Tallulah, where she goes into the women's bathroom, into the stall, and is out of toilet paper, and asks the lady next to her, "Do you have any paper over there?" And the lady next to her and occupying the stall says no, and then she says, "Do you have 2 5s for a 10, darling?"
That's a good one.
I like that one.
So let me, if I can, try to crack this nut. But first off, the nut that is Tallulah. But Janet, I know we're drinking a little early this day tonight. But again, did you bring something in the room to share?
No, I didn't. I have water.
That's good.
Nothing
Water will
exciting.
count. Water counts. That counts. So, because if not, I have to kick you out of the room. That's the rules of the engagement here. So Tallulah Bankhead. Again, Leslie's going to be performing the iconic role of Tallulah, and I'm not quite sure how she got involved in film. Who was it that discovered her? Whether or not she was involved with. I think she got in stage first before she went to film.
Yes, she did.
And she was the original. I'm trying to remember the character name, but with the skin of our teeth, she was the original.
Yes,
and I think she won a Tony Award for the role, right?
and also she was the original.
Mm-hmm.
She was the original in the Little Foxes on Broadway.
Yeah, Little Foxes, yes. Yeah, but again, one of the things that I remember saying was what she read the script for The Skin of Our Teeth and thought it was the worst thing ever and didn't think it would do anything at all. And sure enough, it wins a Tony Award for it.
Right.
So that's some of the iconic things. But let me so if I can start off, and Janet, you can tell me a little bit about what went into melding this figure for making Leslie into Tallulah. That's her there.
Yes.
And what was it that you kind of as a director told her what she needed to do, or perhaps maybe talked to her and kind of fleshed out the character? What were the things that you were looking for to get out of this?
Well, I absolutely knew she could act it. Absolutely knew that she could do everything that has to be done, and it is quite demanding, and it really is. Takes a lot of stamina and a lot of deep emotions, and Leslie can do all of that. But the one thing that we had to work was lowering her voice a little bit, and so she does her vocal exercises
I do
to get it down there.
Humming and finding my baritone, because it's not a deep voice like strict or something, because it was very forward placed as well, so it's got a lot of resonance, but it's deep, darling, and it's going like that. And she's very affected, even though she's from the South, but she spent a lot of time in London. You see, it's a favorite city of all times, because you know why I love London? Because they love me in London. It's that kind of thing. It's so much fun.
Now,
So that's the main thing with Leslie is just getting her ability to take her soprano down a little bit.
You made her a mezzo, is what you're saying.
Contralto. Baritone.
Yeah. So again, as I appreciate it, she was suffering from some sort of bronchitis or whatever as a child, and that's what affected her voice to where she. Yeah. So and again, some people have had that.
It could be the bourbon too, though.
Maybe
and the cigarettes and
the cigarettes probably didn't help. I can guarantee you of that. And again, another photo of and again, do you know who took the pictures? Leslie,
that is gorgeous.
Brandon Kime took the pictures. He's wonderful. We went over to the Carousel Bar at the Montleon Hotel and had a good time, and caused quite a scandal On a hot
One of my
day.
favorite places. Yes, the Carousel
Yeah, it was
Bar.
great.
Um,
That's
and-
real bourbon in my glass, by the way.
why not? I mean, you know.
Yes, I mean I had to get in character.
And on stage, Janet, did you allow her to have bourbon as well, or?
She needs it.
I think after I'm going to need a quick shot after, but there are a lot of lines to remember. So if I
Yes.
start tippling on the stage, you're really not gonna. I won't get to act two.
Leslie, what's your favorite part of doing Tallulah Bankhead? You know, obviously the role has a little bit of ups and downs, I guess, as she goes through this this process of trying to do this one line that has to be redone, looped, as it were.
Yeah.
So, but what's your favorite part of the role that you have? Every time you do it, you say, "Oh, this is fun. I really, really enjoy this part."
I love the parts in the play where I shock the film editor, the character of Danny, who is played by Eric Lincoln, and I just love to see his face when I say something, scandalous, or when I start dishing on other celebrities is also a very juicy.
I think the favorite
I won't
one
give
of
it
mine,
away, but she has a little bit on Joan Crawford that is priceless. And
that is priceless. And when he says, "So you came to Hollywood to be an actress?" and she said no, and she tells him the story, and that's kind of shocking to him too.
yes.
And again, as I appreciate it, she used to go to different parties, etc., and introduce herself, and she would say, "Yes, I'm a lesbian. What do you do?" So apparently,
You would say, I'm the first to say I'm bisexual. Buy me something, I'll be sexual.
right. I can't imagine. She was pretty much out there. I mean, in terms of
He was
living
very
her life,
scandalous.
she had you mentioned Joan Crawford, but I believe Marlene Dietrich was also involved with her. And what was a little hard for me to kind of figure out as to where they met on stage or wherever it was, but apparently Hattie McDaniel and she had some kind of a connection. Is that?
Well, she lived. Tallulah lived for a long while at the Algonquin Hotel when she was a teenager, trying to get her start on Broadway. For some reason, her chaperone thought the Algonquin was like a great place, respectable place to hang out. And then I think it was one of her aunts was sort of charged with watching her when she arrived in New York. She won a beauty contest sending a photo in, so she got a spot in some little show on Broadway. And then through hook or crook, she finagled her father to let her stay at the Algonquin with her aunt as chaperone, and so she was hanging out with the Round Table.
I can't imagine. Dorothy Parker and her must have gotten along.
Dorothy Parker, my goodness.
Oh yeah, and then I think the manager of the Algonquin said, "I can't control Tallulah. Why are you leaving her in my charge?" She was this reckless young thing, 21-year-old kid, just going crazy. And then she decides to move to London for 10 years, and she becomes just the toast of the town in London because she was known to break character. Anytime something scandalous would happen, she would break the fourth wall, and anything sexual, double entendre in the play, she would just make a bit out of it, and people in the audience she was like the first like real house, she was a reality star almost back then. People would come to see what she would do on stage. But at the same time, she was a brilliant actress when she wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
She was totally committed. Like
that's
was a story about Tennessee Williams writing Streetcar Named Desire with her in mind.
Yes.
Turned it down because she was intimidated and she couldn't do it. There's a whole speech. Streetcar is very important to Tallulah, and it plays a big part in the play too. I actually have to do some Blanche Dubois in the play too, so that's fun.
I thought that maybe one of the things that she was a little intimidated by big roles, and Janet, you've done shows like one-woman shows where you have to feed yourself the lines. I think she was probably a little bit less convinced of her abilities sometimes, that she didn't have what I guess you might say the courage to go on stage sometimes and tackle.
I think it might have been that, and I think it was and this part of the play too, that she realized at some point that people wanted to see Tallulah more than they wanted to see the character she was playing.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
So and again, I don't know, Leslie, during your research, was there a particular Tallulah Bankhead film that you saw that you know, was it The Little Foxes? What was it that
It was Lifeboat. It was Lifeboat.
Lifeboat was amazing.
Lifeboat? Oh my goodness! How did I happen to have that one handy?
Fantastic. She was so wonderful in that.
And what were there, 7 characters in the Lifeboat when it opens up? Alfred Hitchcock film, and it takes place in a lifeboat, literally, and all the characters are there in the boat at the very beginning, and she's there. What has she got iconically right in front of her? Her typewriter, right? That's she's right there, and she's a reporter, as I recall, and she's typing. She managed to save her typewriter. Now you got to think about that. I mean, everybody's trying to scramble to save their lives. She manages to get her typewriter into the boat with them. I mean, that says a lot about the character, the backstory there. How did that happen, right?
Right.
You know? And she's wearing what? She's wearing
a diamond bracelet.
And what on top of it,
and a fur coat.
And there's a fur. So it's like, what? So I don't know that if you did you see the whole film? This
summer I streamed it, and it was just, you can rent it for about $4.
Oh,
you know.
Yeah. It's great.
I'd never seen it before, and it's kind of early Hitchcock, but I mean, her performance is amazing, and just the writing of the play of the movie. It definitely plays like a play. They are in a boat. I mean, it would be a great stage adaptation.
I would love to see a stage adaptation of that here. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but Hitchcock, he didn't always end up. Sometimes, you know, we say it ended up on the cutting room floor. He didn't always end up having it in, but he always shot scenes of himself in the movie. And of course, people were wondering, well, there's only 7 characters on stage. How's Hitchcock going to get himself into this movie? Because he can't fly in and fly out, right? Do you know how he did it?
I don't know. Oh my gosh, there he is.
Is that funny?
Is that Hume Cronin?
No. That's William Bendix.
Oh my gosh,
William Bendix.
Great.
And
is that something? That's for the lore of those of us who are Alfred Hitchcock fans, because I'm a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock. You know, there are obviously there's several different films. I think like in North by Northwest, he's like trying to get a bus and it closes on him or something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly, but there are a lot of different little scenes like that where he does, you know, cameos, and that's how he got himself into that film. So again, Looped is going to be on. Now, can you give me the dates on this? Because you know, for those of us who are getting past Young Frankenstein, they're going to be. This is starting right afterwards in November, correct?
Yes.
November the 9th through the 19th.
Very good. Thank you.
So 10 days, essentially, this is going to be on a smaller stage, correct? This is going to be on the what we used to call the Teatro Wego, which is now called the Westwego Cultural Center. They got a fancy name for what used to be Teatro Wego, because I guess I understand that you know, Teatro Wego doesn't really say much as the cultural center. But now the other theater that's there, the big one, that's going to be opening up soon, I hope.
Yes, finally getting the repairs done from Hurricane Ida, finally. And that's such a lovely little space.
It is. And it's been built and destroyed at least 3 times that I know of, you know, from hurricanes, et cetera. So hopefully the insurance kicked in and the state got their act together. But you know, I know Dennis loves to produce in that. It's a wonderful little producing venue. I have to say, a lot of people don't know, but the same people that did Rivertown actually did that theater.
Design.
It's designed similarly, I think. Yeah.
It's almost exactly the same. So, again, those of you who like going to Rivertown and like the seats, etc., the Westwego Big Theater is when it opens up will be exactly the same. You know, it may not have the side portions like they have at Rivertown that are.
How many seats will we have, Janet? Where we have about 120 or something. For our play, it's very intimate. It's a very small space, and it sort of feels more of an immersive environment. You know, I think for Looped is what it's going to be. It's sort of set on an angle, so you're really going to like get close up to Tallulah and her antics. So it's completely unamplified acoustic. So it's really going to, you know, except when she's recording, but it's going to feel very immediate and intimate. So I'm looking forward to that too. You know, coming from the spectacle of Young Frankenstein to go.
What an entrance she has. Oh, I just love her entrance.
That's great. Oh, it's great.
Well-
Wearing a fur coat, sunglasses, you know. She's only about 1 or 2 cocktails in for her entrance, and then she continues to get more inebriated during the show.
Again, we're not going to be able to hear you sing in this. This is not a singing role, right?
And you wouldn't want to hear me sing as Tallulah either.
I appreciate that. But I would love to hear you sing any other time.
Any other time. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah, you have a wonderful voice, and again, we are blessed when you do sing. So again, even though you won't be singing in this particular case,
I will again. Don't worry.
Yes. We hope so. Jan, I want to thank you for stopping by. I'm going to wrap things up with Leslie, but again, you're the director for Looped, and again, we appreciate you as an actor, as a director, and generally as what I would say is a iconic figure here in New Orleans, beloved by everyone here who has anything to do with theater. And again, the first lady of the New Orleans stage, as I like to say.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you so much. And again, thank you for taking time out of your night tonight to come by and visit. Okay, thank you. All right. And again, Janet Shea, the great Janet Shea, with us today. Leslie, we're going to wrap things up in a little bit. We got a little bit of time, but I wanted to get a little bit more into the character, and I appreciate Janet, being with us again. But can you tell me a little bit something about Tallulah Bankhead that many people might not know about her, that would maybe make them stop and think a little bit about her as we already know she's a bigger than life character, but is there something about her that she did, or perhaps that people didn't know about her that made her more important in your mind?
She was the daughter of the Speaker of the House from a conservative, Republican representative for years and years, but she was always quite liberal in her politics. She was very socially liberal. She was a strong advocate of civil rights, back in the day when it was really kind of against the grain. She always fervently believed in civil rights. She fought for, people's equal rights. She held no animosity, whatever lifestyle or anything with people. So she was a firebrand, and she was an independent thinker.
She was of the time when fascism was rampant across the continent. You said she was in London.
And during the
could you tell me a little bit about how she felt about Hitler, Mussolini, etc.?
Oh yeah, she was very, very anti-fascist against all of that. So she was on the right side of political history, even when it wasn't popular to be so.
Yeah.
She really never cared about what people thought, ever, except faced with the aspect of playing Blanche Dubois. It was this one thing in her that she didn't know if she was good enough.
Well, you're right. I think it's that self-confidence that she lacked, and people would tell her you're very good, but she wouldn't believe it. And
she was. And I think a lot of that acting out and that personality came from her insecurity and her not feeling of being accepted as a child. Really,
and that goes back again. Like I say, she lost her mother. She didn't have somebody to take care of her, to kind of like give her the kind of I guess you might say nurturing that she needed as a youngster, and she had to go out looking for it. And obviously the drinking, the drugs, etc., that was probably part of what she was looking for fulfillment, because she couldn't find it from getting her feelings addressed. But she was a character, and she died rather young. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, she was
under 65, so early 60s, 63, 64, 65.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about people, who kind of drink themselves into an early grave, and she might be one of those who drinks and drugs.
It started emphysema, and from the smoking and everything, and it just followed down. She almost died from gonorrhea when she was 31.
Well, that was another thing. Yeah, she had venereal disease,
and they're different. In the play, she blames a famous celebrity, but I've read in other accounts, like there's perhaps another celebrity who gave her the gonorrhea instead, but it went unchecked for a long time, and she had to have an emergency hysterectomy at age 31. That's why she could never have children. Right. She loved children and was never able to have children, and that was a loss in her life, and I think probably why she never was able to stay married to anyone either. So,
but she was married, despite the fact that she had dalliances with women. She was married to an actor for about 4 years or so at one point.
Yep.
So she did enjoy at least a conventional marriage, for some time.
She was I mean, she loved men and women equally. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
What is there anybody you could think of who today would be similar that people would know, who was as out much like her in terms of her lifestyle, and not so much her predilection towards one group or another, but just the fact that she was the celebrity and just really well known, et cetera. Is there anybody we have here in our lexicon of famous celebrities that would be
but you need to help me out because I mean, I think it's like an amalgamation of a lot of type of big.
Yeah, I mean, the only one who comes to mind, and maybe not these days, but early on would have been like Madonna, somebody like that,
yeah, definitely.
A maybe Cher, I don't know, but Cher,
yeah, I think Madonna's a good way because Madonna really caught the cultural zeitgeist, as
but
with her,
I was just
celebrity and her fame. Yeah,
I just, like I say, I mean, there are very few people who are as well, I guess, as suited or as comfortable in their own clothes or in their own skin as Tallulah Bankhead was. She really didn't make any excuses for who she was, did she?
Not at all. Not at all.
And again, anybody who wants to know a little bit more about her, November the 9th through the 19th, Janet Shay's directing, you're starring, and who are the other two characters who are in this as well, who are playing the
Eric Lincoln plays the role of Danny, the film editor of the thing, who is on stage with me, and we banter about, and then you see in Act 2, I sort of become interested in his story, and I draw his story out of him because I'm interested in people with secrets. So we had this empathetic sense of her too. She wanted to help people live their full real life, and so I think she helps bring Danny out of his shell through her outrageousness. And then David Haydell plays the role of the sound engineer up in the booth. So he's hilarious. Every now and then he has a line. He's Steve. In the beginning of the play, I hear of Danny's talking about the character Steve, and I think it's his imaginary friend. So I'm like, who are you talking to? And all of a sudden I hear his voice. Oh, what was that?
Do we see him actually, or is he only in shadow?
We'll see him.
Okay.
Above in the booth. So
okay, all right. So again, Looped is going to be playing on the smaller stage at the Westwego Cultural Center, November 9th through the 19th. And again, we want to make mention of the fact that this is JPAS, so you can get your tickets at jps.org. Or you can call, their phone number is 504-885-2000. Yep. I have that one memorized, don't I? So, so those of you who are interested in getting tickets, it's not till November, but make plans to go see it now because, again, I'm assuming this is going to be on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday basis.
I think we also do Thursday. I think we'll do 8 performances.
Okay, Thursday.
We'll do 8 performances over 2 weekends.
Okay, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday matinee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunday matinee. Yeah.
And I'm assuming 7:30 for the evening performance.
7:30 evening performance. Play runs an hour and a half. And Westwego, it seems so far away, but when I drive, I mean, boom, it's very convenient. 3 minutes from the Huey P. Long Bridge, over there, and then you're there. So that river is a psychological barrier, but it's actually closer than you think.
All right, so we're gonna have Young Frankenstein first, and then Looped is gonna be on afterwards, and again that's gonna be starring, of course, you in the role of Tallulah Bankhead, and 2 big shows for JPAS. One, a bigger show that you're directing, Young Frankenstein, and then the smaller show Looped, all about Tallulah Bankhead. And again, I want to thank first off Michael Paternostro, who's playing your Frederick, and also, of course, Charlie Carr, who's playing Inga in Young Frankenstein. I want to thank the great, wonderful Janet Shay for her being with us today as well as a surprise guest. And more, to the point, we want to thank Leslie Castay, who's having the busiest month of her career off Broadway, because on Broadway, I'm sure you were doing a lot more too. But in terms of New Orleans, this has got to be the biggest back-to-back set of things that you've been doing. Although I know you did a lot of stuff at Tulane and that you were doing, as well as doing other things, performing as well. So
yeah, I've been busy, but the secret to this is the reason why I booked up my fall is that I'm an empty nester now. My youngest has gone off to college, so this really takes away the sting to just keep busy, keep busy. So.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate all that you do, and I want to thank you for being with us. Stick around for just a second. I'm going to say good night to everybody, and again, we appreciate everybody going to check out Leslie Castay, whether she's directing or acting. She's going to be wonderful. Go check it out. And again, I'd remind everybody that this is NOLA Theater Talk. We are seen on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and my own YouTube channel. I want to thank all of y'all for being here tonight. This is Alan Smason saying, as always, I'll see you at the theater.